It was a typical Sunday night, or so everyone thought.
Imagine waking up every morning next to someone who smiled at you, someone who folded your laundry, who packed your lunch, who kissed your cheek before you walked out the door, someone who knew every corner of your life, your fears, your routines, your medicines, your coffee order. Now imagine that same person had already decided you needed to die, not in a moment of rage, not in a blind panic, but slowly, deliberately, quietly, with patience. That's not fiction. That's not a screenplay. That is exactly what happened to Marcus Ellison, a 44-year-old electrician from a quiet suburb outside Columbus, Ohio. A man who loved his wife completely. A man who had no idea that the hand that poured his coffee every evening was also the hand poisoning it. This is not just a story about crime. This is a story about the most dangerous kind of betrayal. The kind that comes wearing the face of the person you trust most in the world. Stay with me. Because what happened in that house on Birchwood Lane will change how you see the people closest to you, forever. Marcus Ellison was born in Dayton, Ohio, the second of 3 boys in a working-class family. His father was a mechanic. His mother worked the overnight shift at a textile plant for 22 years. Marcus grew up understanding one thing above all else. You take care of the people you love. That's it. That's the whole job. That he got his electrician's license at 23. By 27, he had his own small contracting business. Nothing glamorous, wiring residential homes, the occasional commercial job. But it was his. He built it from nothing. He met Diane at a 4th of July cookout in the summer of 2006. She was 28 years old. Sharp, funny, magnetic. The kind of woman who walked into a room and made it feel like a party had just started. She was a dental hygienist at a practice in Westerville. She had an apartment, a car she paid for herself, a group of friends who adored her. Marcus was smitten from the first conversation. He told his brother Danny later that night, and I quote, "I'm going to marry that woman." His brother laughed. Marcus was not joking. They dated for 2 years. He proposed on a Tuesday evening, not a fancy restaurant, not a beach at sunset. He proposed in her kitchen, while she was making pasta, because Marcus Ellison was not a performance kind of man. He was a real kind of man. He got down on one knee right there on her kitchen tile, ring from his grandmother, and said, "I can't picture a single day of the rest of my life without you in it." She said yes before he finished the sentence. They married in September 2008. Moved into a 3-bedroom house on Birchwood Lane in 2010. 2 kids came along, a son, Caleb, in 2011, and a daughter, Lily, in 2013. Marcus coached Caleb's Little League team every Saturday morning. Diane volunteered at the school bake sales. They went to church most Sundays. They had barbecues in the summer. They put Christmas lights up every year the weekend after Thanksgiving. Everyone on the outside, they were the dream. The couple you pointed to and said, "See, it can work. Marriage can be good. Life can be warm." But here is the thing about perfect pictures. They only show you what someone chose to put in the frame. What was happening behind the frame on Birchwood Lane was something no one in that neighborhood, no one who sat at their dinner table, no one who waved at them from the driveway, could have ever imagined. Friends and family would later say the change in Diane was gradual. So gradual, in fact, that most of them didn't register it until they looked back. The way you don't notice the temperature dropping until you're already cold. Around year 8 of the marriage, somewhere in early 2016, Diane became withdrawn. She started spending more time on her phone. She began going to the gym at odd hours, 7 in the evening, sometimes later. She stopped initiating conversations at dinner. She started finishing her wine a little faster, Marcus noticed. He asked her about it multiple times. He would later tell investigators that she brushed it off as work stress, as tiredness from the kids, as just needing some space. Marcus gave her that space, because that was the kind of man he was. He didn't push. He trusted her. That trust would nearly kill him. What Diane did not tell Marcus, what she was hiding from everyone, was that she had met someone else. His name was Trevor Cole, 38 years old, a real estate agent who worked out of an office in Dublin, Ohio. Tall, confident, the kind of man who wore expensive watches and knew how to make a woman feel like the most interesting person in the room. Diane had met him at an open house she attended with a colleague in the spring of 2016. Their first conversation lasted 3 hours. The affair began within 6 weeks. First it was texts, then phone calls during her lunch break. then hotel rooms in Columbus on days she told Marcus she was visiting her sister in Cincinnati. Her sister, speaking later to investigators, confirmed that Diane had not visited her once during that entire period. By late 2016, Diane was fully in love with Trevor Cole. And the life she had on Birchwood Lane, the house, the kids' school schedules, the Little League Saturdays, the church pews, Marcus smiling at her over the breakfast table, had begun to feel, in her own words to Trevor, like a prison. She wanted out. But she did not want a divorce, because a divorce meant splitting everything. It meant shared custody. It meant years of financial negotiation. It meant Marcus alive and present and part of her life indefinitely. And then there was the insurance policy. Marcus Ellison had taken out a $600,000 life insurance policy in 2012, shortly after Lily was born. Standard practice for a man with 2 children and a mortgage. The primary beneficiary was his wife. $600,000. Diane knew about the policy. She had co-signed the paperwork. Prosecutors would later argue that it was in the fall of 2017 that Diane Ellison stopped thinking about leaving her husband and started thinking about something far more permanent. Forensic investigators, when they eventually reconstructed the timeline, identified October He asked him one question before he said anything else that he asked. Is there anyone in your life who might want to hurt you? Marcus Ellison stared at him, and for the first time, the word he had been refusing to let himself think pushed its way to the front of his mind, his wife. Columbus Police Department's Major Crimes Unit was contacted by the hospital within the hour. Detective Sergeant Carol Winslow led the investigation. She was a 20-year veteran of the department who had worked over 40 domestic poisoning cases in her career. She later told reporters that the moment she read the toxicology results and heard the word chronic, she knew exactly where to look first. She knew because chronic poisoning requires access, daily access, and in a married household, that access belongs to one person above all others. That a search warrant was issued for the Ellison home within 48 hours. Detectives arrived on a Thursday morning while Marcus was temporarily staying with Danny Pruitt. Diane was home. She was cooperative. She was calm. She offered the detectives coffee. They declined. The search took 6 hours. In the kitchen, forensics technicians swabbed Marcus's personal coffee mug, the large gray one with a chipped handle that Diane always prepared for him, the one that sat on the left side of the coffee maker, the one she handed him every evening before bed. The swab results came back positive for ethylene glycol residue in the garage, behind a steel shelving unit stacked with old paint cans and yard equipment. Investigators found a 1-gallon container of automotive antifreeze with approximately 30% of its volume missing. A cloth had been placed over the top of it. The container did not belong to either of their cars. Marcus's truck and Diane's SUV both used pre-filled sealed coolant systems that had been serviced by a dealership. There was no mechanical reason for that antifreeze to be in that garage. Forensic analysts matched the compound in the antifreeze container to the specific ethylene glycol variant detected in Marcus's bloodstream. On the same day, Detective Winslow's team executed a warrant for Diane's personal laptop. The recovered search history, along with deleted browser data, revealed the full sequence of research that had been conducted between October and November of 2017. They also recovered text messages between Diane and Trevor Cole spanning 14 months. The messages were extensive, intimate, and in several exchanges, Diane had made references to Marcus being out of the picture soon and to their future together being almost ready. In one message, sent on November 28, 2017, Diane had written to Trevor, "It won't be long. He's already starting to slow down." Trevor's response was a single word, "Good." Both of them were unaware that those messages would be read aloud in a courtroom. Diane Ellison was arrested on a Wednesday afternoon in March 2018. She was pulling into the elementary school parking lot to pick up Lily when 2 unmarked police vehicles boxed her car in. She was handcuffed and placed in the back of a detective's vehicle in full view of several other parents in the pickup line. She did not scream. She did not cry. She asked, very quietly, if someone would make sure Lily got home safely. A social worker was called. Lily was taken to Danny Pruitt's wife, who had been contacted in advance. Marcus, sitting in Danny's living room, received the call that his wife had been arrested for his attempted murder. He did not say anything for a long time. Danny later said he just sat there with his hands on his knees, looking at the floor. Eventually he said, very quietly, "I kept thinking I was imagining it. I kept telling myself I was wrong. He wasn't wrong." The trial of Diane Ellison began in September 2018 and ran for 3.5 weeks. It drew significant media attention. Local news crews camped outside the Franklin County Courthouse every morning. National true crime outlets ran daily recaps. The case had every element that makes a story compulsive. A suburban couple, a secret affair, a calculated poison, a husband who survived by days. Prosecutor Linda Meacham built the case methodically. She began with the medical evidence. Dr. Farida Hussein, the toxicologist who identified the poisoning, walked the jury through exactly what ethylene glycol does to a human body. She explained, in clinical detail, what Marcus had experienced for 3 to 4 months. The jury sat in silence through her entire testimony. Several of them did not take their eyes off the medical charts. Then came the forensic evidence, the coffee mug, the antifreeze container, the compound match. Then the digital evidence, the search history, the deleted files, the text messages read aloud one by a court officer in a voice that made the courtroom feel like it was getting smaller with each sentence that Diane's defense attorney, Raymond Cho, an experienced criminal defense lawyer from Cincinnati, pursued two primary arguments. First, that the forensic evidence was circumstantial, that the antifreeze in the garage could have been there before the Ellisons moved in, that the mug swab could have been contaminated. Second, that Marcus had enemies from a business dispute several years prior, and that the poisoning could have been perpetrated by someone outside the home. It was a competent defense. It was not a convincing one. Because on the 9th day of the trial, the prosecution called Trevor Cole to the stand. This is the moment that everyone who followed the case remembers. This is the moment that broke something in the courtroom. Trevor Cole had, up to this point, retained his own attorney and refused to speak to investigators beyond a brief initial statement. He had not been charged with any crime. Prosecutors had determined that while he was aware of Diane's intentions, there was insufficient evidence to prove direct participation in the poisoning itself. He was given limited immunity in exchange for his testimony. He took the stand in a dark blue suit. He did not look at Diane when he sat down. Prosecutor Meacham asked him about the affair. He confirmed it. She asked him about the text messages. He confirmed them. She asked him about the message where Diane had said Marcus was already starting to slow down. He said yes. Then she asked him the question that the entire courtroom had been waiting for. She asked, "Mr. Cole, did Diane Ellison ever tell you, in her own words, what she was doing to her husband?" A pause. Trevor Cole looked at the jury. Then he looked at his hands, and then he said, "Yes. She told me she had found a way to fix the Marcus problem for good." Those were her exact words. Fix the Marcus problem. The courtroom erupted. The judge called for order 3 times. Raymond Cho was on his feet immediately. Diane Ellison sat at the defense table without moving. She did not flinch. She did not react. She stared at a point on the wall directly ahead of her, and her expression did not change. The man she had poisoned her husband for. The man she had risked everything for. The man she had believed would build a new life with her. He had just handed the prosecution the trial. The jury deliberated for 11 hours across 2 days. On the afternoon of October 4th, 2018, they returned to the courtroom. The verdict on count 1, attempted murder in the first degree, guilty. The verdict on count 2, felonious assault with a deadly weapon, guilty. The verdict on count 3, domestic violence with serious bodily harm, guilty. Diane Ellison was remanded into custody immediately. She was sentenced 6 weeks later by Judge Patricia Hobbs in a proceeding that lasted 2 hours. Judge Hobbs did not mince her words. She described the crime as, quote, "one of the most deliberate and cold-blooded betrayals I have encountered in 23 years on this bench." This was not a crime of passion. This was a campaign, sustained, calculated, and executed by someone in whom the victim had placed his entire trust. Diane Ellison was sentenced to 28 years in the Ohio Reformatory for Women, with a mandatory minimum of 20 years before parole eligibility. Marcus Ellison was given the opportunity to address the court. He stood up slowly. He was still thinner than before. His kidney function, doctors had told him, would never fully return to what it had been. There would be medical management for the rest of his life. That he did not scream. He did not break down. He stood at the microphone, looked directly at Diane, and read from a single handwritten page. His voice did not waver once. He said, "I gave you everything I had. Every day for 11 years. I loved you without conditions and without reservation. I believed in you. I believed in us. And you chose this. You looked me in the eyes every single morning, and you chose this. I don't understand it. I probably never will. But I want you to know, I'm still here. And I intend to stay here. For my children. For myself. I hope you find, wherever you're going, whatever it is you were actually looking for. Because clearly, it wasn't me." He folded the paper. He sat down. Not a single person in that courtroom made a sound. Diane Ellison is currently serving her sentence at the Ohio Reformatory for Women. Trevor Cole was never charged with a crime. He relocated to another state within 3 months of the verdict. He has not made any public statements since the trial. Marcus Ellison spent 4 months in medical care following his arrest. He underwent kidney treatment, cognitive therapy, and what his doctors described as a remarkable recovery given the extent and duration of his exposure. He remarried in 2022. His children, Caleb and Lily, are by all accounts doing well. He has never spoken publicly about the case beyond his courtroom statement. And here is the thing I keep coming back to. Every single time I think about this story, Marcus Ellison was not a careless man. He was not naive. He was not weak. He was an intelligent, grounded, perceptive human being who loved his family and paid attention to the world around him. And he almost died, because the person doing it was also the person sleeping beside him every night. The person who knew the exact moment his guard was down. The person who had 11 years to learn the precise geography of his trust. Betrayal doesn't always arrive with a warning. It doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it learns your routines. Sometimes it hands you your coffee with a smile. Sometimes it kisses you goodnight. And sometimes, if you are very, very lucky, someone notices before it's too late. Marcus Ellison was lucky. Not everyone is. If this story hit you the way it hit me, hit that subscribe button. Every single week on MINDLORE'S Studio, we go deeper into the stories that make you question everything you thought you knew about the people closest to you. Share this video, because sometimes the most important thing we can do is make sure someone else knows these stories exist. That I'll see you in the next one. And until then, stay safe, stay aware, and never stop paying attention.